Hello everybody, welcome to OT Academy's and Online Trading Academy's webinar session series. Today we've got a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, actually something that I get frustrated when I watch what is going on with people's credit. A lot of people don't understand that credit is probably the second most important number that you have out there. Number one is your Social Security number. Number two is your credit score. Why is it so important? Well, if you think about why banks and brokerages make hundreds of billions of dollars a year, it's because they have access to cheap money, they take that cheap money, and they make more money with it. Now, that may not be your goal with credit, but that does allow us, by having a good credit score, to access capital very cheaply, and then we can use it for other purposes. Maybe buying a home, a car, or even investing. But let's start a little bit higher up here. First, let's look at some of the reasons why you want to have good credit. And of course, in our minds, we think instinctively, good credit means that I can, get a credit card, get a home. It's much, much more than that. Certainly, the lending side of it becomes important, things like loans. But you can also look at buying vehicles. Maybe you're looking to rent a new apartment. One of the things they check is your credit score. Maybe you're buying a new home. If you're in the military, certain levels of clearance, of security clearance, are required to have certain credit scores. So that could be an important one as well. Maybe you're an accountant in the mortgage industry, law enforcement, work for TSA. Credit scores become very, very important here. And why is a credit score important? If we think about what credit is basically somebody loaning us money, and then it's our ability to pay it back. And if you have problems paying back a loan or paying back your money, that reflects negatively on you, maybe your character and your personality. Oh, I can't pay back my debts. That might not look good for an employer out there, that you lack the responsibility to fulfill your obligations. So if I'm an employer, that might look bad for you. So that's the kind of extrapolated version here, a little bit different than what you might think of just a regular credit score. So what is a good credit score? Well, there's a couple different rating agencies. We have Vantage, but most people are still using FICO. Now you can get your credit score by going to www.myfico.com. I think you have to pay it there. Some of you that have credit cards, you can actually get it for free on your credit card, so check those out. But really it ranges from 300 to 850. If your credit score is in the 300 range, you have some serious problems, my friends. That is a horrible credit score, and we need to do a lot of work there. Upward bound, so 850. If you're above 800, you are in golden territory, and you can pretty much get any loan that you want. What our goal would be for all of you is to be somewhere between 750 and 850. That is where there's no question about your credit worthiness, and you will qualify for just about any loan out there right away. So let's look at an example here. Let's say you want to go buy yourself a new truck, and here's that 2019 Ram 1500, and it's a 4x4 truck. You need that for whatever purpose. So you go out there, and you can see that right now, as of this is actually taken 2 days ago, that Jeep or Dodge is offering 0% APR for this Ram 1500 4x4 truck, and it's $46,340. So you go down to the dealer and you say, all right, I want to buy this truck because at 0% interest for 5 years, that's a $46,340 truck. There's no added cost here for me because of the 0% APR. My monthly payment, well, that's a little bit steep, $772, but you know what? This is the truck that I want. I really want that truck. So what happens? You get there, you're sitting down with them, everything's great, and you say, how do you want to pay for it? You say, hey, I want that 0% APR. They run your credit score, and they go, ooh, yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Rothfeld, your credit score is only 580. We can't offer you that 0%, but we do have a third-party vendor which will get it to you for 8%. And you're like, man, I love this truck, I want it, and you just say, well, fine, sign me up. Well, what damage does that do to you? Look at the monthly payment here. The monthly payment goes from $772 to $939. That's an increase of $167 per month. Now, that might not seem like a lot to you, but you add that up over 5 years, that's $10,000 that you are literally throwing away because you had bad credit. So bump those scores up. Now, it might not make much of a difference here on a 5-year time frame, but some of you might be in the process of looking to buy a home, right? We've got great low interest rates right now, good time to buy a home. Prices might be a little bit high, but this is not a real estate class. So let's say you found your dream home. It's, let's say, a $400,000 house, and you need a $300,000 loan, okay? So you come in with your 25% down, and you go, wow, 4% rates right now. That's what I want. Great. At 4% rate, I'm looking at making monthly payments of $1,432. Excellent. Well, maybe your credit score is not the best. It's not 800. Maybe it's down at like 640. Well, you might be in the okay credit category, and you're going to get 1% higher, meaning you're paying 5%. But what if you're bad? What if you're down in the 540s? you could have to go to a hard money lender and pay 8% interest. Now, this is where these numbers really start to add up. If you look at the difference here, with 4% at 30 years, your interest payments is going to be $215,000. Just 1% increase in this bumps the amount of interest we pay to $279,000. That's an increase of $64,000. That's only 1%, but it equals 64 grand. This is why it's so critical to get good credit. Now, if we had that hard money lender, at the end of 30 years, we would have paid an extra, this is on top of everything else, an extra $279,000 just in interest because we had bad credit. So we need to take steps to fix that. And to really add insult to injury here, here's how it would look if we just took that monthly savings on a 5% mortgage or an 8% mortgage. We took that savings and reinvested that annually for 30 years. You can see the growth of that capital. So it's not just that we're wasting money, we're wasting opportunity on what we could be doing with that money and growing that money. Funny, if we took the savings over a 8% versus a 4 and reinvest that for 30 years, you're looking at about $1.1 million after 30 years just by letting that extra interest grow. You could buy a new home for that, my friends. All right, so let's talk about what we came here to discuss today, which is how to optimize our credit score. Number one, review your credit reports. You can do this once a year for free. There's websites out there, annualcreditreport.com. We'll give that to you. And basically, you need to go through all three of them. You have TransUnion, you have Equifax, and you have Experian. Go through all three of them and review them with a fine-tooth comb. Now, you may not know exactly what you're looking for. That's okay. First, let me tell you what's in there, and then I'll go through some practical steps of how you can track the information in there. Number one, it includes your personal data. And this is all, residences, where you have lived. This is critical. I actually had a mistake on mine. They posted a property management company that I had in Texas on my credit report as a personal residence. And sometimes when you're filling out loan applications or opening up the different lines of credit, they will ask you, have you ever lived at this address? And I said no, and I was declined because they had thought that I was. So I had to petition to have that address removed. That's part of the personal data that was an issue. They give you a summary of your credit history. Detailed account information. So every account that you've ever opened will be there if it's a credit account. They'll also track all the inquiries. So if someone has checked to try to open a credit card for you, or maybe you went to rent an apartment and they did a background or credit check, you'll see that there. Of course, there's different levels of inquiries. We have hard and soft inquiries, but that's we'll save that for another course. And then finally, you have details of any accounts that may have been turned over to an agency. You're hoping that none of these are on your list because you don't want to have anything turned over to an agency. That is a really bad sign. So what does it look like? Well, it looks like this. And now, depending on which agency you go to or where you pull your reports from, they might be slightly different. But this is basically a simple credit report, and it tells you the number of accounts. You can see here we've got two different categories of credit. We have revolving credit and installment credit. Revolving credit is typically your credit cards, whereas installment are loans where you're making fixed payments over a period of time. And there's a couple different things that you really want to pay attention to here, and that's really the balances that you have. But we'll look at that here in just a minute. If you want to learn more about how to read this credit report, what to look for, there's a great video at otacademy.com. It's called Take Good Care of Your Credit. So just do a search for that, Take Good Care of Your Credit, and we'll walk you through what to look for, how to analyze this line by line, but we'll save that for your self-paced education out there and not cover that today. Number two, dispute. Oh yes, argue. If you go through your credit report and you have found some discrepancies, this happens quite regularly. There are little things that might be on your credit report that aren't yours. You may actually find things that you don't want to be there. For example, I was reading stories of people who've had homes opened up under their Social Security numbers. Loans. This is a loan that they don't have, a home they don't own. Somebody else just used their Social Security number and bought a house with it. This is crazy stuff. How do you know? It's in your credit report. You'll see the loan in there. So go through everything, and if it's something you don't identify, check it out, talk to the credit card companies or credit companies, and make sure that everything that's in that credit report is yours. If it's not, dispute it. Now, how do you dispute it? Well, first off, you have to go to these agencies, and again, there is a process that you have to go through, just like everything. Number one, you have to contact that bureau. Now, it used to be that you had to mail in documents and photocopy things and have receipt approved from the post office, etc. But now it's pretty much done all online. So you can go online. I'll give you their emails here in a second. You contact them. You submit a dispute form. There is a dispute tab on their websites. From there, you track your claim, meaning stay on top of it because they have really no incentive to fix your credit report. So they might drag their feet. Stay on top of them. This is a laborious task. It could take some time to clear up these discrepancies, but if you remove a bad mark on your credit that was not yours, you had nothing to do with it, it could significantly improve your credit score in a very, very short period of time. The important part here is to make sure that you do it for all three of them. And here are those major three agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. While they should all be relatively the same, these credit reports could be slightly different. So again, very important that you check all three of them and make sure the information on each of these agencies is the same and correct. Next one we want to look at is tracking all balances. Now, some people are very on top of their credit. I myself don't carry any balances, but some of you might. Depends on the economic times. Some of you might just not have the ability to pay them. That's okay. You just got to make sure you pay the minimum. So how do we track all of our balances? Well, you could set up different websites or apps on your phone where you can track each credit card. That's what I do. You could also pull this from your credit report and see where your balances are at any moment in time. And if we look at this report here, you can see there under the revolving credit section, there's a lot of different line items there. You think of like 8 or 9 items. You can see you got K Jewelers here, Wells Fargo, Sears, and several others. There are a couple numbers on here that are absolute red flags. And as a general rule of thumb, what you want to make sure of is that you have whatever your credit card limit is, you don't want to exceed 25% of that balance total. I myself try to keep mine under 20 at all times. What that means is if you have a $10,000 credit card max, you never want to go over $2,500 because as soon as you go over that, it'll start to impact your credit. So look at this page here and you can see that right away this individual has some pretty big red flags. You can see this one right here. This is a CAP. I'm not sure. I think this might be Best Buy. But you can see we've got a Capital One credit card here with an $1,800 limit or $1,600 limit. And right now it's at $972 balance. So they're over 50% used on that credit card. That is a red flag. That is a negative mark on their credit report. Now, next one we want to look at here is the Wells Fargo. It's a $1,000 balance and they're currently using 712 of it. That's a 71% utilization. That could be a significant negative mark on the credit report. Last one here is this Sears card. Honestly, who's shopping at Sears anymore? You have a $4,000 balance $4,000 max and $3,500 used. That is a huge red flag. You have almost 80% balance utilization in those credit cards. We could do some simple things, and we'll look at that here in a second, but we need to remove those balances, maybe open new cards, drop those balances to below 25%. So on that Sears card of $4,000 max, get that balance to $1,000 or less, and all of a sudden within a month, your credit score will pop to the upside because you are keeping below that 25% threshold. All right, next one here is set up AutoPay. This should seem rather intuitive. We live in a technological era where we can pretty much set everything up to pay for itself. It's critical that you do this. I made mistakes when I was 18, 19 years old. Sometimes, I put the bill on the counter and I forgot to pay it, or I'll get to it next week and I just forgot. All of a sudden, that takes a ding to your credit. And missing just one payment can have a pretty significant impact. If you get to 60 days late or 90 days late, maybe go to collections, then you really have a lot of damage repair to do because those can stay on your credit report for a long time. So how do we avoid that? How do we never, ever make a late payment and ever have to worry about that impacting our credit? Set up AutoPay. Now, there's 2 different ways we can set up AutoPay. The first one is to really just go out there and say, I'm going to pay the minimum balance. So let's say, I know that every month for all of my credit cards together, I have to pay a minimum of $500, okay? Maybe that's kind of a high amount, but let's just stick with that. So $500, great. Set them up to every card that you have is on AutoPay for the minimum amount. If you can, what you should be doing is paying your balance in full. Why? Because if you look at the way that credit card companies make their money, it's usurious. It's taking advantage of the American and global consumer because they're loaning you money, and if you don't pay it back in full, they're charging you 20, 24, 25% on those credit cards. That is obscene with regards to how much money you'd be paying in interest over time. So you should be paying your balances in full, but I understand many people have other financial obligations and you can't. Now, this question comes up, and I'm digressing a little, but if you have a student loan that, let's say, is charging you 5% a year, or you have a credit card that's charging you 24%, a lot of people are rushing out to pay off their student loan. Leave the student loan at 5%. Do everything in your power to pay down that 24% credit card. Get it down to 0, and then you can start worrying about your student loans. I know it's a pride thing to pay off that student loan debt, but credit cards will suck the money right out of your account faster than a bad marriage. All right, let's go to, oh, sorry, David likes Sears. Some people have to like Sears out there. I get it. They're still in business, but just barely. Okay, this is one that you don't read about. This is one we really had to dig to find, and it's actually very, very interesting. Don't close your oldest credit card. You're thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? It means a lot. Check this out. Let's say, for example, we're just creating a hypothetical timeline of somebody's credit history. And their first credit card was opened in 1980. They opened their second one in 1990. They bought their new car in 2000. 2010, they bought their first home. And here we are today in 2018. 38 years worth of credit card or credit history. Why 38 years? Because that first credit card was opened in 1980. And here we are in 2018. That is 38 years. So let's say you realize that the second card you had, you never really use it. It's charging an annual fee, and you go, you know what? I just don't want to use it anymore. So you cancel that second credit card that you opened in 1990. Does it hurt your credit score? Not really. It might go down a point because of the removal of the credit, but it's not a big one. And here's what your timeline still looks like. You still have 38 years worth of credit history. And actually, when it comes to the evaluation and calculation of your credit score, credit history is a major one. The longer you've had credit and sustained credit, the better it looks for you. So what if we wanted to get rid of that first card that we ever opened, that one way, way back in 1980? You know what? I don't even use it anymore. It just sits there collecting dust. I'm going to close it. Watch what happens to your timeline of history. If you remove that old credit card, all of a sudden, your credit history is now 18 years. Now, 18 years is probably still good credit history, but 38 years is much, much better. And you can see that all we did is close that one credit card, and that anchor point, the beginning of our credit history in the eyes of creditors, has now disappeared. So what you should do is never, ever close that first card that you opened. If it's a card that charges a fee, contact that credit card company and say, look, I don't use this as much. I'm going to cancel because I have a fee. And they'll go, oh, sir or ma'am, we'll just transfer you into one that doesn't have an annual fee. Would that be acceptable? Yes, that'd be great. As soon as that happens, just put it in your dresser drawer and never use that thing again. Just shelve it forever, and that will be your anchor point for your credit history. It's really important because, as you saw in this visual, 38 years versus 18 is a significant difference. All right, last one. Open another card. And this may seem counterintuitive. Isn't opening another card going to hurt my credit? Well, what happens is we open another card, yes, you might get a little bit of a ding, and those dings are usually 1 or 2 points, no big deal. But the benefit impact here can be much more significant. So let's take a look at a visual of what this might represent to us from an investment perspective and from a portfolio perspective. So here's an example of somebody who has, let's say, 4 different cards. You've got a Target, a Visa, a Chevron, and an Amex, and you can see their respective maxes and balances. So all told, right now, this individual is using 34% of their available credit. Again, what was that magic number I told you earlier? 25%. So this is actually rather negative for the person. They're going to get some negative marks because of this 34% utilization of their credit. But what if they opened up another card? So they go out there and they say, oh, you know what? I'm going to open up one more card. Here's the magic of credit utilization. They open up a new MasterCard, which gives them a $20,000 balance. And notice that I haven't spent another penny. All I've done is increased the available balances, the available maximum, right? It just jumped by $20,000. So before it was $32,500. Now it's $52,500. So 21% utilization, and I haven't even spent a dime. So this is a simple, easy way to increase your credit score. Why? Because it's much more important to them that you are staying under that 25% balance than it is if you open up one new card. Now, what could we do? This is kind of a little bit of a tangent here, but what can we do to pop this even further? Well, you'll notice, remember I was saying 25% balances are kind of bad? Well, what we could do is take this Visa balance here. You guys see the Visa card has a maximum of $20,000 and there's currently a $10,000 balance on it. That is bad, right? That's 50% utilization. We want to get that under 20 or to 25 or less. So what I could do is I could do a balance transfer, and a lot of times credit cards do that for free when you first open them. So this MasterCard probably has a free balance transfer for 6 months or something. Take $5,000 of that Visa, move it down into this MasterCard. So now every card on this list is under 25% utilization. Your overall credit is only at 21% utilization. So not only would this opening the new MasterCard increase your credit score, it's also going to pop if you move and keep all those balances under 25%. You'll get a much bigger increase out there. This could be a 20, 30-point increase in your credit score in a very, very short period of time. So let's kind of review these real quick. Number one, as far as our 6 steps to really increase your credit score, is to review those credit reports. You'd be surprised what is in there. There could be many small little errors. Make sure it's 100% correct because it reflects you, your credit worthiness, and who you are. If there is any issue in there, dispute any of those discrepancies. It's a process. It's going to be tedious and time-consuming, but it can help you significantly. And removing any blemishes on your credit report could significantly impact your credit score for the better. Number 3, track all balances. You've heard me say many times throughout this presentation that you really want to keep them at 25% or less. I personally will never run a balance of more than 20%. The next step here leads to AutoPay. I pay all of my balances in full every month. I will never carry a balance on a credit card until, well, I never will. It's my mission to never, ever carry a balance. I do that with AutoPay. Now, if you can't pay your balances in full, always pay the minimum. So what you should do, if you're watching this right now, is immediately go out to your credit card companies. You can do it on the app on your phone and say, just set up for AutoPay the minimum. We can all pay the minimum, right? Pay the minimum. If you can, then go and you can add on later and pay the balances or pay a little bit extra every month so you pay off that balance. But always set the minimum payment here because if you miss a payment, it's a big ding to your credit and it's just not worth a lapse of, I guess, memory here. If we forget to, oh, I'm out of stamps, I'll get to it tomorrow, and you miss it by one day, ding to your credit report that's going to take a long time to fix. Number 5 was probably the biggest eye-opener for a lot of you, the aha, like, wow, I didn't know that. Don't close your oldest credit card. Leave that credit card out there. Why? Because it is the anchor point for your credit history. It's that point of reference that the credit card companies will look at and say, wow, this individual has had credit for X amount of years. Great. The longer that is, the safer they will feel lending you money and the better your credit score will be. If your credit history is only 1 or 2 years because you keep flipping and closing cards, you're never going to get that big loan that you want for a house, right? It's really, you want to have a long history to make sure that the credit card companies feel comfortable with you. Now, the last one really deals with shuffling money around. Open another card. Now, it's funny because we listen to that one, we go, that sounds counterintuitive. Opening another card, I'm taking on more credit. Isn't that bad? It's a minor ding, again, of 1 or 2 points. But the benefit could be much greater than that. So it might drop you 1 or 2 points because you open the card and you have an inquiry in your credit report, but you might be bringing your balances down. You could shuffle money around to those different cards, so all of a sudden you're at 25% or less on all of them, and that could give you a 30 or 40 point pop. So yes, opening a new card could impact you slightly to the downside, but you can utilize it to have a much bigger pop to the upside. Again, the overall goal here is to figure out steps that we can take to get ourselves in that 750 to 850 range. If you're above 800 on your credit report, pat yourself on the back. If you find yourself in the mid-7s, got a little bit of work. Let's get up to those high 7s so you feel comfortable and you know that you're going to be qualifying for any loan that you go for. If you're in the 6s, you got some work to do. Really sit down, map out what you got to do to get your credit report up there. Because I remember, as I told you, it is the number 2 most important number you have out there. It is our ability to get cash when we want it, where we want it. I'm recently involved in a real estate transaction, and I'm making sure that the people I'm dealing with have pre-approved loans, right? Their credit scores got them a loan, so I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to qualify for it. Make sure that you guys have a good score so that you can qualify for these loans as well and get the property, the car, the job, the apartment that you want without being hindered. If you're down in the 4s and 500s, you really should go and watch all of the videos at otacademy.com that deal with credit reports, credit building, credit history. There's a lot of great content that dives much deeper than we have here today in these specific topics. So if you found some of this interesting, you really feel like it could impact you by taking the proactive steps and looking at how you can improve your credit score, again, go to otacademy.com. We'll get you more information on how you can improve your credit history and your credit report. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Again, we'll see you next time on our future webinars. Take care.